Hello and welcome to The Point. You can't have failed to notice the sharp colour contrast that have become Narendra Modi's new sartorial style, or the indifference with which Rahul Gandhi dresses. Is this simply a reflection of their personal taste, or does it also reveal their personalities as well as their approach to politics? That's the second discussion tonight. But first, with an increasing number of extremist voices spewing communal venom, could elements of the BJP and Sangh Parivar create a serious problem for any government Mr. Modi may form? Is that a potential time bomb ticking inside the Modi camp? And now joining me to discuss the threat his own supporters and allies could pose to any government Narendra Modi forms is the BJP leader in the Rajya Sabha, the deputy leader, my apologies, Ravi Shankar Prasad, the former editor of the RSS magazine, The Organizer, Sheshadri Chari, the chairman of the Hindu group, N. Ram, and the well-known senior journalist, Kumar Ketkar. N. Ram, within a space of just 2 weeks, we've had the Amit Shah, Praveen Togadia, Girirajs Singh and Ramdas Kadams episodes. Are you beginning to fear that extremist elements both within the BJP and the Sangh Parivar could create a problem for any government Mr. Modi forms?
Yes, absolutely. These are not necessarily extremist elements, Karan. These are part of the Parivar, and the BJP website is very clear on the relationship of this family of organizations nurtured by the RSS. So some of these people, of course, go far out and make outrageous statements, statements based on hate, religious hate, communalism and so on, but the mildness of Mr. Modi's so-called protest through a tweet says it all, that he does not take them on because he's their man, and the moment he does that, it looks like you're kicking the ladder on which you ascended. So it does not bode well for Modi Sarkar, should that be the outcome after May 16th.
Sheshadri Chari, the fear that Mr. Ram is talking about is one that must be shared by tens of millions of people and not just minorities and Muslims. As someone who clearly supports Mr. Modi, how do you believe he should respond to this fear?
I think number one, Mr. Modi has already responded. The party has also responded adequately and very well within time. The RSS has also responded. Nobody is supporting these elements or these statements in the first place. Number two, I think Mr. Ram is reading too much between the lines. Mr. Ram gets alarmed during election times, and I don't think Mr. Ram will be very right in singling out only the BJP. Every political party has these elements who vent their feelings at the election times.
The reason we are concentrating on the BJP is because the polls suggest the BJP could form the next government, and therefore these extremist voices from the BJP side are much more worrying.
I agree. That is all the more reason why the BJP should be extra careful, and which is what we are doing. We are very careful. We have been identifying these elements, and we have told them you have to be very careful. And we have told the Election Commission that whatever action the Election Commission takes, we stand by it.
All right.
Therefore, we can't interfere in the acts of Election Commission even otherwise.
I'm glad to hear that.
But all the same, I think we are seized of the situation. But to say that these fringe elements are out in the open and they are taking over the party,
I'm going to stop you, Mr. Chari. I'm glad you're seized of it. I'm glad you believe it's something you must act on. But let me bring in Mr. Ketkar to see whether you've acted adequately or inadequately. Mr. Ketkar, after the Girirajs Singh and Togadia episodes, Mr. Modi tweeted, and I'm going to quote what he said: "Petty statements by those claiming to be the BJP's well-wishers are deviating the campaign from the issues of development and good governance. I disapprove of any such irresponsible statements and appeal to those making them to kindly refrain from doing so." Now, in your eyes, is that an adequate and sufficient response, or is it, as N. Ram said, far too mild to be persuasive and convincing?
Well, actually, Karan, let us not be too naive. Because if you put this Praveen Togadias speech against Narendra Modi's speech in 2007, 2005 and even 2002 and play them to the TV viewers simultaneously, along with Praveen Togadia, Ashok Singhal and Narendra Modi, they are speaking the same language. So if it is a fringe group, Narendra Modi once belonged to that fringe group. If you call it a lunatic fringe, then Narendra Modi belonged to that lunatic fringe group. Now that BJP is finding that it is likely to be in power, suddenly they have realized that such people are embarrassing, such statements are embarrassing, and that's why they have taken this so-called action which is supposedly mild. But effectively, what these people are saying is actually the heart and mind of Narendra Modi, not Narendra Modi but RSS, as Mr. Ram said. And therefore the threat comes not from the lunatic fringe but from the basic ideology that these people profess. They were professing till 2009, Karan.
All right.
So it's not a question of Narendra Modi talking liberal language now.
Let me stop you there. You're making a very important, if not a devastating accusation. What he's saying, Mr. Chari, is that what Praveen Togadia and Giriraj Singh are saying are actually things Mr. Modi would want to say himself, things that he believes in, but because of the constraints of the prime ministerial aspiration that he's taken on, he can't say. In other words, these gentlemen are not fringe people, they are speaking on Mr. Modi's behalf. That is the concern you're getting from the other side. How do you respond to it?
See, 2002, 2006, 2009, 2004 election, 2009 election and now 2014 election. Modi and BJP have been talking only about economic development and empowerment of the people. And in this 2014 election, we are also stressing on two important elements.
But you're not answering the issue he raised. Forgive me. I'm interrupting you.
I'll come to it. And also the corruption issue.
But no, we don't have time to go around in circles, Mr. Chari. Come to the issue Mr. Ketkar raised, that these gentlemen are speaking on Mr. Modi's behalf.
No. They are, I mean, so everybody else, you want one Giriraj and one Praveen Togadia against lakhs and lakhs and lakhs of BJP supporters and the people who are neither belong to BJP nor RSS or Vishwa Hindu Parishad but who are supporting BJP for this cause that the BJP has taken up since 2004.
Mr. Chari, let me interrupt you and tell you why people believe that what Mr. Ketkar is alleging may actually be true. It's the gentle, soft, mild manner of the admonition that Mr. Modi has handed out. He calls it petty statements. It's offensive vitriol, but he calls it petty statements. He says he disapproves. He doesn't even criticize, leave aside, condemn. And then he doesn't name the people. If he wants to carry conviction, shouldn't he have been tougher? Shouldn't he have been stronger?
No, why should you be strong? You know, what is important is not strength or the decibel that you make.
No, I didn't mean loud. I mean strong language, not loud volume.
Yeah, I think a person of Modi's stature or a person of Advaniji's stature or for that matter even in the BJP there are a number of people who should not be using strong words. The point is coming from Modi,
the reason why strong words are necessary is because the level of offense was so great. You don't put down great offense with euphemism and mild gestures. You need to be strong in rebutting it to send a message.
I think the message has gone home. The election commission is seized of it. The party has taken serious note of it. And I think this is more than enough. And I think we have responded very correctly. And people have appreciated.
Well, that's what you say.
I know.
And that's what you're bound to say.
I can never probably satisfy.
Let me bring in Mr. Ram.
No, I can never satisfy Mr. Ketkar or Mr. N. Ram.
But you need to satisfy people like that because they're opinion makers in the country. Let me bring in Mr. Ram and let me put in a sense Mr. Chari's viewpoint, but in a way in which he didn't express it. To what extent is Mr. Modi's mild language explained by the fact that he's in the middle of a very tense election campaign and he cannot really annoy his supporters, and so he needs to find a middle ground for admonishing them? Does that provide an explanation that is convincing for his mild language, or is it inadequate still? No, let that be to Mr. Ram. I'll come back. Mr. Chari, someone else must be allowed to speak. Mr. Ram, that's for you.
This kind of apologia carries absolutely no conviction, Karan, because what he's saying is, what is the middle ground on something so outrageous? Hate politics. hate the other and so on. And let me disabuse Mr. Chari of any notion that I'm alarmed by it. What I'm saying, he didn't listen to me carefully, unfortunately. What I was saying is it bodes ill for any Modi Sarkar should that come into being, should that come into effect. By the way, on the question of lakhs and lakhs, Mr. Chari, I'll be happy to send you a link to a very interesting reportage. It was published in the Observer, done by Jason Burke just the last week, which speaks about he went into the midst of precisely that kind of crowd, and there were a large number. These are people who matter. These are people who campaign for the BJP, and they are
Mr. Ram, let's not get sidetracked by the size of the crowd. Let's not get sidetracked by the size of the crowd. What you're saying to me is that you don't buy the line that because these are in fact supporters and because you're in the middle of an election campaign, Mr. Modi needs to find a mild form of admonition, and that excuses the language. You're saying to me you don't buy that line. Have I understood correctly?
Yes, I don't buy that line. It's highly compromising. It shows Mr. Modi for what he is, the program. He comes from that parivar, and he's a man who, I repeat, will not kick the ladder on which he ascended. And this says it.
We have with us now
adequate.
We have with us Ravi Shankar Prasad, who is the party's deputy leader in the Rajya Sabha. Mr. Prasad, let me quote from today's Hindu Leader. That is the paper, in fact, of which Mr. Ram is the chairman. The leader says, Mr. Modi needs to reassure voters that his is not a divisive sectarian agenda, and that if he were to head the next government, he would act in the interests of all sections of the country and not serve merely as the Prime Minister of the Hindu majority. Do you accept that Mr. Modi needs to give such a clear-cut reassurance to the country, and to do so quickly as well?
First of all, Karan Thapar, I would like to tell you at the very outset that I have my great personal regard for Mr. N. Ram, and that also extends to his right to differ with my views and of that of my party. But as far as his inference is concerned, I totally disagree with that. Mr. Modi has repeatedly said that he would like to assure the entire country he will work for the entire India, Ek Bharat, Shreshtha Bharat. He has worked as a chief minister in Gujarat, where there has been no riot for the last 12-13 years. And why say that? Say the case of Madhya Pradesh, take the case of Chhattisgarh. In Goa, we have got 9 Christian MLAs. The deputy chief minister is a Christian himself.
Permit me an interruption. The point that Mr. Ram's leader was saying is that because Mr. Modi wants to be the Prime Minister and looks from the polls as if he will be, there's greater need for him to reassure people who hear these fringe elements spewing communal venom, and he needs to say to them, they have nothing to do with me, in no way will they influence my government. That clear-cut crystal reassurance isn't coming. What you're getting is mild tweets that aren't convincing.
Then let me tell you very clearly and categorically, Mr. Karan Thapar, Mr. Praveen Togadia is from Gujarat. Has his utterances been able to influence Mr. Modi in any way? When Ravi Shankar Prasad is talking to you, I am also a Swayamsevak. I also don't approve of what Mr. Togadia has stated. That's the party line clearly. We disapprove it. The problem with Mr. N. Ram is that I respect his right to criticize Mr. Modi, but he will always find something in Mr. Modi regardless of what he says. I will only tell Mr. N. Ram with profoundest respect, but the people of India are seeing Narendra Modi in a different light. And it's time he also starts seeing Narendra Modi in a different light.
What you are therefore suggesting is that N. Ram's grievance or concern arises out of prejudice, not out of a genuine point of view. Is that what you are suggesting?
Please, I respect Mr. N. Ram's complete view to criticize Mr. Modi and also to have a prejudice about Mr. Modi. And he has been there for the last so many years.
Okay.
But today I am appealing to him that when the people of India, when so many surveys is giving such a head start to Mr. Narendra Modi, I would appeal to his good sense, because of his profound intellectual equipments, to kindly consider Mr. Modi in a different light. That's all I am saying.
N. Ram, behind the gloss of compliment that you are profoundly intelligent and well-informed lies the devastating criticism that actually your criticism is based on prejudice, that you don't like Modi, but your concerns are not genuine. How do you respond to that?
I didn't read that in my friend Ravi Shankar Prasad's criticism. I also accept it in the spirit in which it is given. I'm just saying that I have a framework, a conceptual framework, an analytical framework within which I read this.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm convinced, but we will leave it there. But to the extent that he disapproves,
let me bring in Kumar Ketkar. Let me bring in Kumar Ketkar at that point. You see, Mr. Ketkar, if you pay attention to the interviews that Mr. Modi has given ABP News yesterday, he actually makes 2 or 3 critical points that might, for some, support the argument you've heard from Ravi Shankar Prasad. Mr. Modi made it clear that he disagreed with Giriraj Singh. He said that Muslims had nothing to fear from any government that he may form in the future. He said he would run his government in accordance with the constitution and not the RSS viewpoint. Now, as someone who's an acknowledged critic of Mr. Modi and obviously very distrustful of his record, to what extent are you convinced by those upfront assurances? Because there he's saying what he didn't say in the tweets.
Well, actually for last 3-4 years, and actually more so for last 1.5 years, Narendra Modi has been shifting his position slowly towards the central ground and trying to pretend that he actually represents the legacy of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And Atal Bihari Vajpayee's legacy is he has to inherit to get the majority in parliament, or to get the majority support, or to get the neutral or the fence seaters who are suspicious of BJP to come to power. So to convince the fence seaters, he has been taking a liberal position, but the question is, how much should we trust? Now, whether that
how much do you trust him? Answer your question. How much do you trust him?
No, I don't. I don't trust, but it is not a question of prejudice. It's a question of how slowly he has been shifting the position from...
It's the slowness rather than the conviction of the change.
2007.
Okay, can I interrupt?
No,
are you saying your concern arises from the slowness of the change rather than the conviction behind it?
No, I am not saying slowness of the change. I am talking about the opportunism of the change.
All right. Mr. Charlie, I want to bring you in there because there are examples that might actually support Mr. Ketkar's claim of opportunism. For instance, the ABP interview may be upfront and forthright and to some reassuring. But there was an earlier interview to ANI where Mr. Modi defended what Mr. Amit Shah said. He actually went on record to say that he found nothing wrong with Mr. Amit Shah's comments or statements. And yet 24 hours later, Mr. Amit Shah actually expressed remorse to the Election Commission. He even said that perhaps he used the wrong words, and suddenly Mr. Modi found himself on the wrong side of that issue. And people say, are Mr. Modi's comments in interviews just tactical rather than principled positions?
See, 2 things. The Election Commission has itself... No.
First Mr. Chari and then I'll go to you, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. Go ahead, Mr. Chari.
No, the Election Commission has itself said that Amit Shah, they didn't find anything wrong with Amit Shah, and then they have told Amit Shah had written a letter to
forgive me. Please, do not manufacture stories. The Election Commission found a lot wrong with Amit Shah. They, however, were prepared to give him a second chance because he expressed remorse. So don't say they found nothing wrong. That is completely false and fraudulent.
There is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong if you listen to what I am saying. I may be totally wrong. You tell me that I am bloody wrong. But listen to me. Election Commission has allowed Amit Shah to carry on his election
because he expressed remorse.
But with certain conditions. Well taken, well taken, well taken. But what is the point? The point here is the change in Modi. All along, people like Mr. Ketkar and Mr. N. Ram have been saying that the BJP's language is very rough, the BJP has to tone down the language, BJP needs a liberal leader. And now today when you have a liberal leader like Modi coming across, you suddenly say that it is wrong. He is not really liberal, but he is only pretending to be liberal. I mean, we are not here to please people like Mr. Ram and Mr. Ketkar.
It's not Mr. Ram you need to please, it's the country you need to please. Let me bring in Ravi Shankar Prasad, who's there with us. Mr. Prasad,
what is happy is the country believes what Modi says.
All right, you put great faith in what Modi says, but Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, you are fighting an election, you want to reach out to the greatest number of Indian people. Mr. Modi always says that. If there is a sizable section, I'm not talking just about minorities and Muslims, I'm talking about a sizable section of this country, which includes a lot of Hindus, who say that Mr. Modi's track record or background both 2002 and his connections with the RSS cause concern. Is it not incumbent on him as a prime ministerial candidate to make extra special efforts to reassure people? After all, in a democracy, what's wrong if you make those extra special efforts to reassure people? Yet people are saying those extra special efforts aren't being made.
You have asked a lot of questions to me. I hope you'll give me some time to reply to it. First of all, Mr. Karan Thapar, Mr. Ketkar is not required to be satisfied about Mr. Modi. I respect the right of Mr. Ketkar to always differ with Mr. Modi. In spite of SIT of Supreme Court giving him a clean chit, yet he was not comfortable. Good luck to him. But when I'm talking to you from Varanasi, I know a lot of Muslims of Bunkar Muslims of Varanasi and others are thinking differently. Because Mr. Modi's record of governance in Gujarat, where the growth of Muslims is the highest in the country, no riot in the last 14 years, peace, it speaks for that. Second, I quite see your point, that when there has been a systematic campaign, you need to reach out. And Mr. Modi is reaching out. All the utterances only indicate. But my problem here, one thing is certainly, Karan, allow me to develop that, since I am sitting in Uttar Pradesh. The way Mr. Modi has been hounded out, what happened in Muzaffarnagar, if an iota of that hounding has been done in case of Akhilesh Yadav and Mulayam Singh Yadav? Never. This kind of discriminatory treatment has always been there. But I am very happy the people of India are seeing to the game. Therefore, Mr. Modi has come on the top and has become the embodiment of hope.
Let me bring in N. Ram and let me put this to you. We're talking about the claim made by Mr. Prasad that Mr. Modi not only accepts the need to reach out, but is reaching out. Now, one of the things I noticed in that ABP News interview yesterday is Mr. Modi said that he accepts moral responsibility for 2002. That may not be an apology, but it is certainly acceptance of blame. Is that a significant step forward, or do you think, given all that's happened and given the need for an apology, it's an insignificant step?
Yes, I think accepting moral responsibility is a significant step, and we'll have to see how that goes. But if I may make one point, Karan, moving ahead and not going over the ground we've already discussed, with your permission, let's assume there's Modi Sarkar, and I would expect Mr. Prasad to have a serious or important role in this. Assuming, for the sake of this argument, that they have really changed, they want to reach out, it's a new policy that's going to come out, will they be able to resist the pressure from not some fringe elements, not from a few people, but from the lakhs and lakhs of people that Mr. Chari referred to? And I don't buy his belief, his faith, that those people are completely constructive and they've accepted all that.
Let me stop you there. We're running out of time. I want Mr. Prasad to answer that. What he's saying is, will Mr. Modi, if he forms a government, be able to resist the pressure from lakhs and lakhs who may want to push him in a particular Hindutva direction? Has he got the spine and the caliber to say no, full stop, even if that happens at the cost of annoying his supporters? A quick answer, because we're out of time.
First of all, it is absolutely inappropriate, and I disapprove with that lakhs and lakhs of the workers of the party or the Parivar are the kind of element Mr. N. Ram is referring to. The kind of decision we have taken about Mr. Mutalik in Karnataka is too well known. And now we have the record of governance, Mr. Karan Thapar, in 9 major states of India. And the blessings of people will have governance in India as well. And let me assure to you, all the people watching it, that Mr. Modi's record of governance will be inclusive, development for all, without discrimination.
Very quickly, Mr. Ketkar, literally in 10 seconds, you've heard the discussion. You are perhaps, of my 4 guests, the most skeptical of Mr. Modi. Are your fears that he will fall under pressure from fringe elements somewhat alleviated? Are they enhanced, or do they remain exactly where they were? But you have to answer in 10 seconds flat.
Well, it is not a question of pressure from the below. It is a question of pressure from within. Because it is a question of not of governance, it's a question of ideology.
So are your fears enhanced or alleviated?
Fundamentally different.
Are your fears enhanced or alleviated? One or other, quickly.
His question is not of governance, it's a question of ideology. Narendra Modi's ideology is not fundamentally different. That's the point I'm trying to tell you.
And that seems to suggest to me that your fears remain exactly what they were before the discussion began and before you heard either Ravi Shankar Prasad or Seshadri Chari. We're going to have to leave it there. This is clearly a concern that matters to a lot of Indians. Undoubtedly, it's one that we will come back to repeatedly between now and the election results on the 16th. But for now, my thanks to my four guests.